What's going on, everybody? Episode number 39 of Trail Tales. That is what you're listening to. My name is Kyle O'Grady. I am a thru-hiker, I am a peak bagger, and every single week I have on another hiker, whether it's someone who has thru-hiked the Appalachian Trail, someone who has done some crazy peak bagging project, or someone who has thru-hiked a shorter trail like today's guest. Well, he's also thru-hiked the Appalachian Trail, but that's not what we talk about. Anyways, that is what we do every single week here on Trail Tales. If that sounds like something you're interested in and you have not done so already, I encourage you to not only hit the subscribe button, but make sure you smash it. I am a creator of content, and so I have to use the cringy, smash the subscribe thing. Anyways, yeah, please subscribe to the show. That would be cool, especially if you like what you hear. Obviously, now let's get into what the hell this episode's actually about. Aaron Ibey is back on the show for round 2. He recently got back from thru-hiking this trail in the northern part of New Hampshire called the Cohos Trail. I think that's how it's pronounced, and as some of you that have listened to past episodes know, it's a tough trail to pronounce, okay? And as we discover early on here, nobody knows how the fuck you're supposed to pronounce this trail. But what you are going to know by the end of this episode is how to thru-hike it, and you're also going to know about some of the cool experiences that Aaron had when he thru-hiked it. I had a lot of fun with this one. It's about time I did a dedicated episode on this trail, and I think it came out great. Aaron, dude, when you hear this, thank you for taking the time, not only once, but twice, to come on Trail Tales. It's much appreciated. Don't hit that skip button. I know that's what you're about to do. Don't do it. Don't do it. I see you reaching for it. Don't do it. I gotta say a couple very important things before we get into the episode. I promise I will make it quick. The first thing, I gotta plug my contact information. I mean, come on, people. It's a podcast introduction. That's what we do. Instagram, @TrailTalesPod. Go follow me on Instagram. Email. I have an email, folks. I reply to every single message that I get, which is not very difficult because I don't really get that many. So send me an email, send me a guest suggestion or a trail suggestion. When people do email me, I've gotten some great suggestions out of that, so that would be really, really cool as well. Facebook is still alive and well, even though I don't really like to use it that much. Go look up Trail Tales on Facebook. Why the hell not? I'm also building a website and have been for the past month, and that'll be around soon, but it's a lot of work. So look for that. Anyways, second thing that I gotta say here, iTunes reviews. So as some of you know, I love the iTunes reviews. 5-star iTunes reviews really, really help the show. It helps us rank higher. It helps give me some much needed credibility. So yeah, please leave an iTunes review. When you do, and you write a little message, a 5-star review, mind you, I will read it at some point during the introduction to an episode, and I am way behind on these right now, so I am going to read a couple. Not all of them. I'm going to spread them out over a couple episodes to make that easier, but yeah, let's read a couple right now. Okay, this one says, "Keep 'em coming. Trail Tales has quickly became my favorite podcast ever since I read a book about the AT, Good Dog, Bad Mountain." I've never heard of that book before. "I've been obsessed. Unfortunately, I am a farm girl and have way too much livestock and responsibilities to take care of to get out on any long trails anytime soon, but listening to all these episodes while I am working or driving keeps the dream alive. Someday, you do a great job with the show." That is a very unique review. I'm very thankful for it. That is awesome. This next one says, "Got my attention. Been listening for several weeks now and appreciate the coverage of topics. Definitely need some CT discussion. Keep up the thing," like F-I-N-G. Good work. So, CT discussion. I don't know if they're referring... they're probably referring to the Colorado Trail, but I'm not positive. Maybe they're referring to the Cohos Trail, and if they are in luck, because that's what this episode is all about. Guys, I love the iTunes reviews. Keep them coming. Make it difficult for me to stay up to date on these like it has been so far. I would really appreciate that. The last thing I'm going to say before we get into the episode here is I'd really like to ask for your help raising money for 46 Climbs. Now, this is an organization that was co-founded by a good friend of mine named Colby Ziemendorf, and what it is a fundraiser for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Now, how this works is you're going to go to 46climbs.com and you're going to register under the Trail Tales team. Now, during the week of August 30th through September 8th, you're going to pick a mountain, and I want to be clear, any mountain in any place. This is not just limited to the Adirondacks where this organization kind of came out of. Any mountain, any place, and during that week, you're going to go climb it. Now, when you register, you're going to receive a shirt and some other goodies, and you're going to wear that shirt on your hike, and we're going to take a very, very negative thing, and we're going to turn it into something active and something positive. This is a great organization, guys. Not gonna lie, I've been a little bit disappointed. I was hoping I could raise some more money, and I'm very thankful for what I have raised so far. But I feel like some more people can step up, or at least consider it. Please go check out the website, 46climbs.com. If you do decide to register, make sure you sign up under the Trail Tales team so we can kind of pool our money together. If you don't like to type things into a search bar, you can also just click the link that's in the show notes. That'll take you right to the Trail Tales page. And just please consider it, guys. I got a couple more weeks to raise this money. I got until the end of the month, and I would really, really appreciate that. All right, that's it. No more plugs. Let's do it. Let's get into the episode. Aaron Ibey, round 2. Cohos Trail, or however you say it, CT, class of 2019. All right, here we go, episode 39 of Trail Tales. Aaron Ibey is back on the show for round 2. I've been having a lot of repeat guests on lately, which is pretty cool because as people do new stuff, I get to kind of talk to them again and catch up a little bit. Aaron, what's going on, man? Thank you so much for taking the time.
What's up? Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me on again.
For sure. We are going to be talking about the Cohos Trail today.
Yeah.
As a lot of my listeners know, I have a hard time pronouncing this trail name, and I feel like after the quick conversation Aaron and I had before we started recording here, I'm not the only one. So Aaron, do you actually, as someone who has now hiked this trail, do you actually know how the fuck you're supposed to pronounce it?
No, I still don't, and I just call it the Cohos Trail. I've heard Cohos, I've heard Cohos, I've heard Cohos, I've heard everything, even to the point to where there's a Facebook group obviously on Facebook, but about the Cohos Trail, and we even posted one day while we were hiking. We're like, how do you pronounce the name of this trail? Because we went, and we got just a bunch of people fighting in the comments of how to say it.
Really? I might have to look this up. My listeners know I love the Facebook groups too.
Yeah. It wasn't super aggressive, but everybody had their own little way of saying it. So we were just saying Cohos.
Okay.
I would assume that's how you're supposed to say it, but then there's the people that live in the county of Coos in New Hampshire, which they're real deep woods New Englanders, and they have their own language, it seems like up there. So they have their own little twist on it as well. And that's where we first got corrected was from a local. We're like, yeah, we're hiking the Cohos Trail. And he was like, you mean Cohos? And I was like, is that how you say it?
Oh, okay. Yeah. See, I feel like that makes me feel a little bit better because I feel like there isn't an official pronunciation, or maybe you were both missing something here, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I feel like for me, naturally, Coos or Coast, was what I wanted to say, but then I've had a couple people on this show actually tell me that it's Cohos, so that's kind of what I'm used to saying now. So I think I'm gonna go with that, but shit, who actually knows?
Let's just call it Cohos. Yeah, that's what we were saying. It's you can call it whatever you want, man. It's a sweet trail overall. For
sure. We're gonna find out all about that.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Cohos Trail or whatever it is. That's what we're gonna talk about today. Like I just said, so Aaron just finished hiking this trail. When did you actually finish?
We finished the 16th of July.
So not even a month ago.
Yeah, not even a month ago. Started on the 6th. I flew into Boston on the 5th and got right on trail and finished actually finished the 15th. Now that I think about it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, because I had a full day off before I got picked up by my parents at the end.
Nice.
So finished the 15th and started the 6th. Yeah, it was sweet. It was a little over 200 miles.
Over 200? I thought it was a little bit.
Yes. Yeah, so it's the official mileage is 175, but we actually ended up doing an alternate route on it. We ended up, so once you get to Jefferson on the trail, which is right after the Kilkenny, and you're right by the Whites and the Presidentials, the trail actually bypasses the Whites, skips all the Presidentials, and then drops in right at the Dry River trail. So it goes over Eisenhower and then straight down into the woods again. So we were screw that, dude. Let's do the Presidential Traverse. So instead of going around this in this random flat part of the trail where there's no real climbs or anything, we ended up wanting to go over the Presidential Traverse and finish that way.
Okay, cool.
So we did a little bit alternate route, but yeah, after everything with all the side trails we did, it was right around 200, and it was an amazing trail, man.
Everybody that I've talked to that has done all or part of this trail says it's freaking awesome. I've had a couple guests on who have done it, and I remember in some of those episodes, I was oh, I'm going to do a proper dedicated episode to this trail someday. And here I am. I'm glad we're finally getting around to it.
Dude, I'm stoked I could be the one talking about it.
I did talk about it a little bit with one of my guests named Alton Eckel. And I think we probably only spent 10 minutes or so. So people probably got a little bit of an idea of what this trail is exactly then. But in case somebody listening to this has not heard that, why don't you just, I know you just kind of got into it a little bit, but why don't you just give the overall explanation of what this trail is, kind of where it starts and where it ends, and just the first sentence on Wikipedia if you were reading the Wikipedia page for this trail.
Yeah. So the Cohos Trail is roughly 175 miles. It starts at the New Hampshire Canadian border, just north of Pittsburgh, New Hampshire. Literally in the middle of fucking nowhere.
I was gonna say I've looked on Google Maps up there before, and
you're literally in the middle of nowhere, and you start right at the border, right at Fourth Connecticut Lakes. There's 4 Connecticut lakes in the northern tip of New Hampshire that you walk through, and starts all the way up there and goes all the way down to Davis Path, where it finishes in Crawford Notch. That's the official ending point, but we ended a little bit down the road at Webster Cliffs on the AT.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I mean, you're still pretty damn close there to Crawford Notch.
Exactly. We wanted to kind of make our own route, and that's why we did a little bit different. We just took another route instead of the low route that the Cohos Trail normally takes.
Yeah, might as well. I mean, I know you've done the AT, so you had probably already hiked there through the presidential section, that is.
Yeah.
But I feel especially for someone who maybe hasn't done that would be a pretty epic way to end the hike. On the reverse, because I guess it sounds like you guys hiked southbound. I feel and I maybe I shouldn't feel like this because I've never done this trail. I don't know. What do you think? If you started and did the presidentials and then kind of migrated over to the the proper Cohos Trail from there on, do you think that would kind of just ruin it being so epic at the start versus having that at the end? Or I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, for me it was really cool walking into the White Mountains, because you start off and I mean you're at pretty low elevation. up at the Canadian border, and like you walk into the Kilkenny Range, like maybe your second or third day in, and or actually like fourth day in, really. Um, and it's just extremely, dramatic going southbound, in my opinion. I wouldn't want to go northbound. Uh, just that's just my personal opinion
Hmm.
because the ending, if you end at the Canadian border, it's like the middle of nowhere and like it's nothing crazy. Um, there's no like cool clear cut line like on the long trail or anything like that where
Yeah.
you can actually see like the dividing line through Canada and the US. Um, it's just basically like a road with a customs building there, and that's it.
Oh, so it
Um,
actually ends like on a road. It doesn't kind of end in the woods.
yeah, it ends right on the road, right by a parking lot where you can park your car like right before the customs building.
Interesting.
Um,
That must be kind of
yeah,
weird for like the people that work in that customs station, just like in the middle of nowhere, but they're used to seeing these like grungy ass hikers coming through
Yeah,
like
and the
that.
weird thing is you have to like walk around and walk behind the customs building, like in between the Canadian customs and US customs. And it's super strange.
Oh,
Like you're
really?
just
That's
like,
kind of sketchy.
yeah, it's so weird. Like when we started off, like we were crossing the road and it kind of goes up this little grassy hill. Um, up to the tree line, and like we were about to get in the tree line, and I guess somebody that was coming in from Canada came in a little too fast on the end of the US customs building, and the dude on the intercom was like, get back. And
Oh.
I thought he was like yelling at us, and I freaked out. I was like, are you kidding me? And
Damn.
I turned around and I ended up he was just yelling at this car that was like flooring it into this
Oh,
customs
that's so
area.
sketchy though. Holy shit.
Yeah, I was like, what the hell? And so yeah, that was a great way to start the hike. So just get a little bit of the shit scared out of you.
Damn, damn. I mean, I obviously I'm sure they're like used to people coming through there, like the hikers that is, but like damn.
Yeah, yeah. There's signs that say like hiker trail this way, and like they definitely see a good amount of people walking through there. But yeah, it was really strange. It wasn't just like a monument in the middle of the woods or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
especially coming from the long trail, which really isn't that far away from
no,
like the
not
two
at all.
terminuses, the northern terminus of the long trail and the southern or the northern terminus of the Cohos trail. Um, they're not very far apart, like distance wise. So I guess that is kind of
There's actually a trail that connects both of those
wait
terminuses.
for real. Like
Yeah, and you can make like a whole loop out of it.
no way, I've never heard of that before. That's
Yeah,
sweet.
yeah. I don't know if I've only talked to one person that was thinking about like connecting the loop, but that loop would be sweet to do. Um, I don't know exactly the mileage on it or anything, um, or even what it's called, but um, yeah, supposedly there is a trail that connects um, both
It's gonna be a
terminuses
lot of
together.
like road walking, probably. I'm assuming.
Yeah, yeah, it's not a probably a super defined path. Most of the Cohos really isn't. Um,
Really, I was gonna ask you about that actually.
yeah, so a lot of it's you're walking on snowmobile path or or like four-wheeler trails or anything like that. Um, there is a good amount that you're on like specific foot traffic only. Um, but there's a lot of like you're walking through snowmobile corridors and um, like four by four, you know, corridors as well.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, that's what Alton had said when
yeah,
we had talked about it a little bit too. She said there was a lot of snowmobile paths and like ATV paths and stuff like that.
yeah. Which the snowmobile paths weren't too bad. It was, like a trail, but just super wide and open,
Hmm.
and a little bit, more graded. But it was super overgrown.
Oh,
Um,
really?
yeah, yeah. So we were bushwhacking pretty much, I want to say at least 85% of the time when we were on the actual Cohos Trail. Um, and like a couple weeks later, we saw that there was like maintenance crews going through all those areas and like,
Of course.
cleaning it up. And we're like, of course, the week after we finished, you guys are out there doing work. But I mean, that's awesome. There's actually a community out there that, you know, supports and like maintains it because I'm pretty sure it's all volunteer based.
Yeah.
it's not part of like the national park system like the AT and the other like three long distance trails. Um, but it's real cool. But yeah, it was a lot of bushwhacking, and there was almost every single day we got lost and had to
Oh,
turn around
really?
at some point. Yeah, because the
How?
blazing.
Okay, yeah, that's literally exactly what I was about to ask. That I was like how well like marked or blazed like signed is it?
Um, so it's blazed with yellow blazes that are just like the
Oh, so you yellow blazed it.
yeah, pretty much.
So it doesn't count is what you're
It
saying.
doesn't even count. It doesn't even count.
Go change the color, Cohos
Yeah,
Trail
so it's all
group.
yellow blazed. Um, and the parts where you think like it would be really easy for maintainers to get out and blaze it, it wasn't blazed at all. Like you'd get on dirt roads and it wouldn't be blazed for like 300, 400 yards.
Ooh,
And so sometimes you're walking on these dirt paths and there's like a bunch of intersections and you kind of look at the map and you're like, all right, I think we go this way. And there's a few times where like the blazes were just completely covered up by trees or bushes, and
yeah.
we walked right past them, and we were like, I don't think we're on the trail anymore.
Hmm.
And we'd have to turn around and backtrack like a quarter to half a mile.
That's always pretty frustrating. Was that
Yeah.
mostly in sections where it's like kind of obvious where you're supposed to go? I guess a better way to phrase that would be, were most of the intersections like at least marked decently, or what was that like?
Not really, no. When you were in the woods, actually following like a little footpath, it was blazed really well. Like when you were in the middle of the woods,
Hmm.
climbing up and down, and but when you got onto like the snowmobile corridors and like the long logging road, road walks, it wasn't blazed that well. Especially on the road walks for some reason, we always got mixed up on those. And you would think that would be like the easiest thing. You definitely couldn't get
Right.
lost, but you would just like all of a sudden, like the trail would just dip off sharp hairpin left to the into the woods through this little tiny opening that you would not even know if you weren't like really, really looking for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my main concern. Like on this trail was, I heard that route finding was a little difficult, and that you really have to be alert. Obviously, there's no gut hooks for it, so you can't just like follow a GPS and
Yeah.
see exactly where you're at. You have to use like a data book and an actual like fold out map. But besides that, like everything else was great. The water was great, but yeah, the blazing and route finding was. You definitely had to keep your eye out. You couldn't just like keep looking
Yeah.
at your feet and walk through the green tunnel because the blazes weren't every 20, 50 yards of space. They
Yeah,
were
makes sense.
they were spaced 200, 400 yards away.
Interesting. That's tough because when you first said and going back to Alton's episode when she said that a lot of the trail is on these snowmobile ATV kind of paths logging roads, I think people just the wider trail that's not just a hiking trail. I initially got kind of excited because I actually really like hiking on that stuff, especially on like a
Yeah.
through hike because you can kind of just cruise, right? Like there's
Oh
not
yeah.
much getting
Yeah.
in your way. But now you're saying that parts of it were kind of overgrown, and I know like it's going to depend on the cycle of maintenance, obviously, and when the
Yeah.
last time people were out there. But I don't know. That's kind of interesting to kind of relate this back to the Foothills Trail a little bit. So for everybody listening, Aaron and I talked quite a bit about the Foothills Trail in our first episode. I was kind of gearing up to go do that, and I have since done it. And I remember a good, like, I want to say at least like quarter of the Foothills Trail, maybe even more, was actually on like logging roads and stuff like that. So that's kind of what I initially thought of when you were talking about, the snowmobile paths and stuff on the Cohos Trail. But it sounds like not quite as smooth, I guess, as the ones on the Foothills Trail. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. How did you end up liking the Foothills Trail?
dude,
Was it
it was
sweet?
it was freaking awesome. Me and I hiked it with my friend Flossie, and like a couple days after we got back, we like recorded an entire episode about it, and I definitely hyped it up a lot. and I think it's absolutely 100% worth all that hype, because we also got like perfect weather the entire time too. Like honestly, I remember I had asked you a little bit about like the temperatures and stuff in our conversation before, and oh dude, it was so fucking perfect. It was like I don't even like know what else to say. Like everything that could have went right went right. Like it was an amazing trail for sure.
That's sweet, dude. That's exactly how it was on the Cohos trail. We had we had literally the first hour of hiking, torrential downpour on us for the first 5 miles, and we were on like a big open logging road, and we had no tree cover, and we were just like, screw it, man. We can't beat being back out on another trail, hiking. And it was kind of our way of thinking we were being like almost baptized to be coming into the woods again.
That's a good way to look at it.
It was washing all the city life off of me. So that was the only rain we got. It rained one other night, but yeah, that was the only day we had to walk in the rain, which wasn't really honestly that bad. It was warm, so it wasn't too bad.
Nice. How many through hikes like this have you done? I meant to do this at the beginning of the episode, like a good podcaster would, like give the guest introduction, but we kind of just got right into the Cohos Trail talk, which is fine. But why don't you just give people a brief like introduction to who you are in case they didn't hear our first episode, like what you've hiked and all that stuff.
Yeah, so I'm a photographer that mainly focuses heavily on thru-hiking and the community around thru-hiking. I've thru-hiked the Appalachian Trail in 2016. I attempted the Long Trail in 2017, and then I've done the Foothills Trail in 2018, and then this trail this year, the Cohos. So I've been super interested recently in like the smaller unknown trails, and just seeing kind of what's off the beaten path. You see a lot, of the AT and PCT, and I mean, you see a good amount of the CDT as well, but I like those really small unknown trails that, less than, 100 people or so have, through hiked or whatever. Just to see something different.
Why did you end up choosing the Cohos Trail this time around? Because, kind of like you just alluded to there, like there are like so many of these smaller trails, and I've been kind of trying to learn about them through various episodes of Trail Tales. But there's obviously like I'm just trying to think of more like just in the New England area. You have like the Mid-State Trail in Massachusetts. I think there's also a Mid-State Trail in Pennsylvania, now that I mention it.
There is.
There's the North-South Trail in Rhode Island. What's the one?
New England Trail.
Yeah, the New England Trail. There's the Monadnock, Sunapee, Greenway Trail in New Hampshire, southern New Hampshire. So I don't know. Yeah, why out of like all these different options, and that's just like the Northeast, like New England. Obviously, these trails are all over the freaking country, dude. Even Arkansas has a freaking trail. Like it's crazy. Let me ask my question. Why, before I get too going here? Yeah, why the Cohos Trail this time around?
I've just honestly, I love New Hampshire. And the buddy that I hiked it with, Eric, or Styles is his trail name. Him and I, he lives right in Mass, and we wanted to hike something together, and he had already done the long trail, and I really didn't want to, go for the long trail again. I want to do that another time.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do something a little different, and the Cohos Trail was just perfect sounding, fairly easy. It wasn't going to, completely kill me. But it was definitely more challenging than I thought it was going to be. But I just have never heard about it. So I was like, I'm immediately attracted to this trail because it was so unknown. And you literally go to look up pictures of it, and there's like nothing. You go on YouTube to find a YouTube video to see if there's somebody that's hiked it. And there's like really not that great videos of people that have done it.
Yeah, dude, I've done the same thing. I've tried to look up videos, and there's a couple, but like not very many. Let's just say Darwin and Dixie have not made it out to the Cohos Trail yet. That's for sure.
No, not at all. Not at all. Yeah, so it was just super unknown. There was like one blog I read about it, and it had a lot of good detail, but it was just not. Nobody knows about it. There wasn't anybody that had like photographed the hell out of it, and I wanted to do it.
Cool, man. Cool. Did you? So, I mean, obviously, like you said a few minutes ago, you are a photographer. What's your plans for like getting all those photos out there? Like, did you just? I mean, you just said you wanted to photograph the hell out of it. Is that pretty much what you did? Like, did you get some good shots?
Yeah. Pretty much all day, day in and day out, just shooting photos. Of everything. I was trying to just show daily trail life of this trail and show the little details that everybody sees, but we don't really may not see the beauty in them. I was just looking for really small details and photographing plants and trees and not just awesome landscapes, but I wanted to show the little tiny details.
Yeah, man.
And that was like one of my main goals, and because there's not a whole lot of people on this trail. So I wanted to document it, but I also wanted to show a little bit of the little tiny beauties you can find on the trail. Doesn't matter what trail you're on, you can find them on almost any trail. But yeah, it was a completely different type of trail to photograph, which was really cool because there wasn't a ton of people. So, and that's what I like to incorporate in a lot of my photos is human interaction with these places. And it was literally just me and Styles together, and so we only saw one other thru-hiker, and he was going northbound. Oh man,
that's actually one of the questions I was going to ask you is how many people you saw.
Yeah, we saw one northbounder, and that was it. Obviously, once we got into the whites, we saw a lot more people. But that was the only thru-hiker we saw the whole time.
Damn, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it was pretty sweet. So, just wanted to photograph something that nobody has seen before.
What I know we talked about cameras and stuff during our last episode, but actually even since then, I think I told you about the one camera I bought, but I've bought another one since then. I bought a Canon M50 mirrorless camera, and like I'm trying to like get better at it, and I'm still not there, but I'm working on it. So this stuff
it takes practice.
It's definitely interesting to me. What did you take for a camera and a lens and all that stuff?
So I took one camera and one lens. I wanted to be as minimal as possible. I had like a crisis about this a couple days before I left.
It's gonna be tough for like a photographer because, again, I don't know too much about it, but like I feel like you probably have multiple cameras and like all these options, and it's like on a thru hike, it's not like you're just going to the park and you could bring a whole backpack full of gear. You got to just kind of pick.
Exactly. So I was trying to be as light as possible because we were kind of doing this trail relatively quickly, so I didn't want a whole bunch of weight on my back.
Of course.
And I wanted something that I could just easily pick up, get out of my backpack and just start shooting photos. So I absolutely love shooting 35 millimeter film, which I think I talked about in the last episode.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking about just bringing just my film camera and shooting only film. But I was looking at the prices and everything, and it was going to be really expensive to do that.
Okay.
And wasn't a great, I could have, totally messed up loading a roll of film and, completely wasted a roll. And I could have been, shit out of luck for a really awesome section of trail and totally missed photos, which it happens, and that's the beauty of it. But, so I just ended up deciding to go with my Sony A7R, with a 24-70 f4 lens on it. Just kept it basic with a circular polarizer on the lens to cut down all that glare and good stuff. And that worked super well for me. I brought a few extra batteries and a recharging block, and that was it. and it worked great. Um, and that's basically what I brought for my camera.
How? So this is another good question. Something I've been wondering about, honestly. I've asked a couple people who are like hikers and photographers this question. How did you carry the camera on trail? Because I found I've done hikes where I'll keep my camera like in my pack or kind of stowed away somewhere, and like I never take it out and take as many pictures as I want to, just because of that mild inconvenience of taking the pack off or whatever. So how do you have you run into that, and like how do you like carry the camera while you're actually like on the trail hiking?
Here's a little plug for this new backpack I just got, which was the Mountain Smith Zerk 40. As you probably know, it's Jabba's and the Real Hiking Vikings new pack that he came out with Mountain Smith.
Cool.
And this was the first time I'd used this, and it has extremely large water bottle pockets. So on one side,
I'm looking at it right now.
So on one side, I kept two half-liter or a little bit smaller than a liter smart water bottles on one side, and then on the other side, I just threw my camera in there, and it fit perfectly. And I could just easily whip it out whenever I needed to. That worked perfectly. And then when it did rain on us, I would just put it in a Ziploc bag and put it, deep into the body of the pack. I just had to be a little cautious when I took off my pack that I wasn't just throwing it down on the ground, because obviously the camera's right there on the outside of the pack. So, and that really wasn't an issue with me. So yeah, that worked amazingly. That's the best way I've found to carry my camera.
How have you done it on hikes past before you got that pack?
So I've had a full chest pack that was a huge cube that I couldn't see my feet. I stored 2 cameras in it, my charging block, all this stuff. And that was just a pain. But there was no other really good option at the time when I was doing the AT.
Mm-hmm.
That was what I found was best in that situation. And then I've also used a fanny pack as well. It was kind of a custom made one by Thru-Pack, and I kind of wore that as like almost like a satchel type deal. And it was they built it specifically for my camera, so it was kind of clunky and in a cubicle thing, which that works great if I'm using more than 2 cameras.
More than 2 cameras? Wait.
I mean, more than 1 camera, not more than 2.
Like, I mean, hey, I mean, some people are really into the photos, like shit.
I have carried 3 cameras before, but
damn.
And that was on like a small little backpacking trip in Colorado. I took like my digital, my Sony, my film camera, and then I carried a little point and shoot disposable film camera as well.
Nice.
So, and then I've used a tiny little mirrorless camera that fits right in your chest pocket that can just a little point and shoot. But I wasn't a big fan of that. But yeah, water bottle pocket is the way to go.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
That's really cool. I'm looking at pictures, like I just said, and that is a pretty big pocket. That definitely works well. I bought the Peak Design capture clip for my backpack, and I've only used it twice, and I haven't used it with a fully loaded like overnight pack. I've only used it for like day hikes so far. But that seems to work like pretty well. My camera is it's a mirrorless camera, so it's not as big as like a full DSLR. So if the camera was heavier with like a big lens and all that stuff, it might be a little bit uncomfortable. It might be flopping around a little bit more. But I gotta say, just having that there on the shoulder strap has been pretty damn nice. Honestly, I like, because kind of going back to how I launched this whole topic here, I've taken way more pictures on the 2 hikes I've used it on than I did on the hikes I went on before I had it, when I actually had to get it out of my pack. So that's definitely pretty awesome for sure.
Yeah, that's the most important thing to me, is that I can just access it easily. I don't want to have to dig in my pack or like have to worry about unzipping this huge chest pack and like taking it out. And I've also looked into that clip before, and I've heard a lot of good things about it. but I just haven't gotten around to getting one. And
I mean, if you have the huge pocket
yeah,
on the front
exactly.
of the shoulder strap now, that's pretty sweet. I actually haven't heard of this brand before, so I'm gonna have to look into it for sure. I kind of want to talk about Cohos Trail a little bit, kind of redirect back to that. I could talk about the camera thing all day because, like I said, I'm trying to like get into this now and learn as much as I can. So I might have some more questions when we're done recording here. But to get back to the Cohos Trail here, so one thing that I'm always wondering about is resupply. So whenever I research like a small trail like this, resupply is the first like topic that I go and try to find information on. And granted, I haven't dove in like a lot with the Cohos Trail because I'm not like actively plotting to hike it at the moment, but like I have done just like a little bit of like quick Googling, and like there's not too much information out there. So how did you handle the resupply? Like how often did you resupply? Were there like stores and all that stuff? Like you're a thru-hiker, you know, like the details when it comes to that. So how was the resupply on the Cohos Trail?
So we did one full resupply out of the whole trail. We started with 3 days of food. And then once we got to Dixville Notch, there's a pretty major road right there that goes into a town that's 7 miles away called Colebrook.
Okay.
And that was extremely hard to hitch at. We were there for almost 2 hours trying to hitch.
Yikes.
Yeah. And we finally got a ride from somebody that was like pulled into the parking lot area and was like walking around and like saw us, and they were like stopped about to pull out on this interstate, and we're like, hey, do you mind taking us into town? And they're like, sure, get in. And it was kind of difficult because I don't think a lot of people up there see backpackers, especially hitchhikers. Yeah, so once we got into Colebrook, it was a very small town. They had a Family Dollar there, and they had everything you could need. All the, super cheap resupply stuff, ramen, chips, all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest of the time, once we got to Jefferson, which was another 3 days away, we actually had quite a bit of food still left. So we just kind of hit up some of the hiker boxes and got a few other little snacky snacks.
Are there some options in Jefferson for those who might want to resupply there?
Yeah, there is a really big like not a convenience store, but like a really big like gas station, but it also has a deli in it, and like it's got a good amount of resupply options for it's a big gas station that has a nice deli.
Is that the old corner store?
No,
I'm looking on Google Maps right now.
Yeah, so that one's like 2 days in. We stopped there to get like some snacks and grab a beer, and that's another place you can resupply. But that was only like a day and a half in for us. So that didn't really work. But yeah, I've heard a lot of people resupply there, especially if you're going northbound. That would be a solid place to resupply.
Sounds like that's like the first place out of the Whites, or looks like it just from what I'm searching on. Maps here.
And then at Dixville Notch, we're hoping that we can get a ride into Colebrook and get into there, and we actually got out of Colebrook fairly easy.
Yeah, how did that work? Like getting a ride back after all that trouble?
We just hung out at a four-way stop and would just walk to people's cars and be like, hey, can you give us a ride to Dixville Notch? And the first dude that we saw was this older gentleman, and he was like, yeah, I'll get in. And we jumped in on the back of his pickup truck, and he was one of those Deepwood, New Hampshire guys that you could barely understand what he was saying. And when he dropped us off, he got out of the car. He had like 3 empty Budweisers, and he was finishing off his 4th. And so he was nice and had a nice little buzz going on. Yeah, he was flooring it through those mountain roads, which was real fun.
I've heard so many stories like of shit like that, which we laugh at, but it's actually kind of fucked. Like, don't be driving.
It's kind of sketchy.
Yeah,
exactly. Exactly.
I love how you just like were straight up asking people though. Like, I did that once on my AT through hike. I don't know how you felt about it, but personally, I felt like kind of like a dick. Like, I was literally at a gas station and like, I probably should have tried to hitchhike harder, but it was just like scorching hot, like Virginia in the middle of the summer, and I didn't really feel like standing out there in the freaking sun. So like, I literally just like went up to a gas station and felt like a homeless person, felt like a fucking like bum, like begging for a ride. And I was just like, hey, like I'm trying to get to this hotel like a couple miles down the street. And the first person was like, oh, we're not going that way. And I was like, okay. And I felt really bad. Like, oh my God, these people literally think I'm just like a beggar here. And then the second person I asked, they're like, yeah, sure. Like we can bring you over there. You a thru hiker? I was like, yep, found my fucking ride. Let's go.
Yeah. For me, I don't know. Hitchhiking is I see where people can feel like almost dirty doing it because
well, I want to make the distinction. I'm not talking about like hitchhiking. I mean like literally like going up to people.
Oh, up to
and
people
like
and
asking, like soliciting a ride that way. Because like hitchhiking, I got no shame about that. You know, they can they can drive by if they want to, or they can like pretend to pull over and then drive off and like fuck with me. That happened
or
one
the best
time
thing
too.
is when they like throw their hands up when you're like hitchhiking.
Like, oh,
like,
sorry, like I would pick you up, but I can't.
Like what does that even mean?
It's like bullshit. Like you don't have to.
Don't even acknowledge me. Like, just keep driving. Like, you have an empty car. Like, get the hell out of here. No, but asking people, it just depends. It's all, depends on where you're at. I always try to be super polite about it like tell them what I'm doing. And like, if they say no, that's the worst they're going to say is like, no.
And it's also like, yeah, and when you're in a pinch like that, especially, like, I don't think that most hikers would do it if they didn't absolutely have to, right? I mean, because you guys obviously had the trouble getting into town, so that kind of...
No, we tried to hitch for a little bit, tried to come out of town, and nobody was picking us up, so we walked like a quarter block down to where there was like a stop sign, and there was a lot of traffic right through there, and we just stood there, and we're like, the first guy, we're like, hey, are you going that way by any chance? Like, can you take us to Dixville Notch? And he was like, sure, get on in. I was like, sweet. And
score.
Yeah, so it just depends.
Do many hikers go into Colebrook like that, or
I don't think so.
So yeah, because that I guess if people did, then
yeah, it's almost like a 20-minute drive into town. So I mean, it's a longer hitch. For sure, and nobody even talks about going into Colebrook. I just saw it on the map, and I was like,
shit, give it a try.
I don't want to carry. Yeah, it was either carrying 3 days or 6 days worth of food to Jefferson. And
really, there's no resupply before Jefferson.
It's kind of weird. You could resupply at that. There, yeah, like for southbound, it's kind of weird because like there's that Young store, which is like a day and a half in. Which is kind of weird. Like, why are you going to start with a day and a half for food? And then, like, that doesn't make sense. And then, yeah, after that is like Jefferson. And I mean, there's like some hotels you can go to where you can have packages mailed to. And
okay.
I'm not a huge fan of like doing the mail your own resupply because I don't want to have to worry about logistics and getting there at a certain time to make sure I can pick it up and all this stuff. So that was what worked best for me. It's kind of untraditional, but
do you think that you might do it a little bit differently if you had to give it another go?
Honestly, probably not. It's kind of a hard hitch because not a lot of people are driving down that road, but you'll eventually get a ride.
Yeah.
And I mean, it has, great restaurants there where you can get a beer and, hang out and do what you need to do. But, yeah, that seemed perfect for me because, 3 days worth of food, your pack's pretty light and, it's not overbearing. And honestly, I didn't even have hiker hunger the entire time. And I was like forcing myself to down food, at night. And, cause that was like the last thing I wanted to do, is buggy and super hot, and the last thing I wanted to do was cook up hot ramen and eat that.
Yeah,
So
makes sense.
yeah, but yeah, I don't think I would change it. It was just I figured it was gonna be hard to get a hitch, and it was, but
That's all right. You guys made it work.
yeah,
I
exactly.
kind of want to go back to what you just said about it being like hot and buggy and stuff. What were the conditions like? Were those two like themes like pretty much true the entire time you were going? Like
Um,
I know it didn't really rain that much, but I don't know like yeah, like how were the conditions on the Cohos Trail?
so honestly, the first like 3 days, the first 4 days was amazing. After we had that really bad rainstorm, after that, it was gorgeous. Like we had mid 70s at during the day, and then it would get down to like 50s at night. So it was just perfect for
Prime.
sleeping.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. Um, Honestly, it wasn't. There was a few days where it got pretty warm, especially like on the days where we had to do like long sections of road walk because you're just super exposed on a dirt road. Um, and there was quite a bit of bugs. Right in July is like mosquito and black fly season.
Yeah.
So there was some sections where the mosquitoes were unreal. I've never seen so many mosquitoes in my life, and at one point we literally had to run, away from them and like just start running because that was the only way to get away from not getting eaten alive. Um, and then also I heard that ticks were really bad, but I only saw one tick crawling on me the whole time, and we were doing a lot of bushwhacking, and I was pretty worried about that aspect of, New England is notorious for having ticks and Lyme disease and everything like that. So I sprayed all my gear with permethrin and all my clothes with permethrin, and I didn't see a single tick.
That's good. That's
I
good.
saw one tick crawling on my sock, and that was it. Um,
And then hopefully it died because of the
yeah,
permethrin. So yeah, that
exactly.
that shit works pretty well, honestly. From my experience, anyways. I'll say I've never had a tick bite me or seen a tick crawling on my clothes or anything like that. When I had my shit actually treated with permethrin. So I don't know. People get a little bit sketched out because of like the whole chemical thing, but from my
Yeah.
understanding, from my very non-scientific understanding, I think it works pretty damn well. It's pretty effective. That's what they say anyways, so I don't know.
Yeah, and that seemed definitely to work for me. So it's either spray your stuff with chemicals or get Lyme's disease.
Yeah, I feel like that's a pretty pretty easy choice to make there.
It's like, which
Shit.
one do you want?
Yeah, and for sure. I like it too because I mean I use DEET when necessary as well, but like I always feel so grimy just like rubbing freaking DEET on my skin and like just the
Yeah,
fact that the permethrin's actually in like the fabric of the clothing and like you don't really it smells a little bit like for a day or two after you like treat it or whatever, but like it's definitely a lot. I feel like it's better for like your or it feels better for your skin anyways than
yeah, it's
actually
not just
spraying
sitting
the
right on your
chemicals.
skin and like
Exactly, yeah.
absorbing into your skin. Yeah.
Exactly.
Um, but yeah, that definitely helped me a lot. Um, but yeah, I mean, honestly, yeah, besides the bugs, we had great weather. We had great weather going over the Presidential Traverse.
That's
It
key.
was great. Yeah.
I kind of want to talk a little bit about like the scenery, I guess is like the right term. So I'm sure a lot of the people listening to this are pretty familiar with the Whites. I've covered the Whites like pretty extensively lately, mostly
Yeah.
with Philip Karsh's story. But
Oh yeah, yeah.
I do wonder about the trail kind of north of the Whites. So this is a question that I asked Alton a little bit as well, but yeah, like how obviously you don't have like the huge like above tree line like presidential kind of stuff, but how was that like the scenery and the terrain north of the Whites and like you're still like going over some mountains and stuff like that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, so I was pleasantly surprised. It was a lot of walking along shorelines of like lakes, um, and a lot of, just rolling up and downs, which was great. It was a nice little warm up before we got into, the Kilkenny and the Whites.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, it was really, really cool. Dixville Notch is one of the four major mountain passes in New Hampshire, with Franconia Notch and then Crawford Notch and I forget,
Pinkham Notch. That's the other one.
and Pinkham Notch. Yeah, Pinkham Notch. It was really cool. There was a place called Table Rock, which was insane. It was just like this tiny little like, it was only about 12 foot wide, just huge rock walkway basically that
Oh,
just was like
cool.
super exposed and looked over the whole valley, which was sweet. Yeah, there was a lot of like little hidden gems. The shelters,
Yes, I was gonna ask about that.
yeah, the shelters were amazing. Super clean. Most of them were at really cool like views, or they were right by really cool views.
Oh, that gets me stoked. I freaking love camping, like near
Yeah,
views and stuff like that.
yeah, it was sweet. We stayed at two shelters along the way. Um, the first one we stayed at was kind of a basic shelter. It was kind of in the woods, right by a lake, but it was, kind of way off. But
Hmm.
the campsites we stayed at were sweet. We stealth camped right on the shore of Lake Francis, which was like a nice sandy beach. And we had this whole shoreline to ourselves that day. We just swam and just hung out, and yeah, it was awesome.
Oh, that's so cool. So I kind of wanted to ask you about the campsites and shelters and stuff. Like I just said, so I don't know, for some reason, like trails with like shelters and like designated campsites kind of fascinate me for some reason, because like even you got these trails like the Cohos Trail, which is seldom traveled and sounds like it might not be as frequently maintained
Yeah,
as other trails. And again, that's not a bad thing. Obviously there's finite resources for these trails. I'm not trying to complain about that, just to be clear.
yeah,
But even like these trails like this like still have like shelters and stuff. And another example of this is the Monadnock to Sunapee Greenway Trail in southern New Hampshire. Again, it's like a pretty small trail. It might be a little bit more popular than the Cohos Trail, but it's like still got like a bunch of shelters throughout the whole length. So I guess to start off here, like how many actual like shelters on, and let's just say just on like the Cohos like trail, like proper section, not necessarily the White Mountain section. Like how many shelters were there that you guys passed?
so there was, I want to say about I want to say about six.
So like there's enough that you could like hike shelter to shelter pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, yeah, it's really sweet. And then the campsites were pretty awesome. There was especially one at in the Kilkenny. It's at unknown pond tent sites. It's just this really beautiful pond, basically, with a bunch of tent sites around it, and it's just gorgeous. Um, yeah, it was. I was really surprised on, for being like a volunteer-based trail, basically, where they get all their maintenance and stuff from volunteers. There was a lot of shelters that were built extremely well.
I've seen some of the pictures on because I'm in that Facebook group too, and like they look pretty damn sweet. Like I'm not gonna lie, like especially
Yeah,
and like this is why I think it's fascinating because this trail is like so small and so unknown. It's like there's still these like awesome campsites and structures and all this stuff. I just think that's so interesting. I don't know.
yeah, it's super cool. Yeah, and then like in the northern section, you walk right by, and you walk through a lot of actual campgrounds, where there's two specifically. There's a Deer Mountain campground, and then there's I think Coleman campground, and those are more in like the northern section, and you can pay to camp there if you want. But it didn't work for our mileage and everything. Plus, we didn't want to pay $30 to just tent camp.
Like you are gonna do the rest of the trail, yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So, yeah, I was really surprised with how unknown this trail was and just how beautiful it was. Every day we saw consistent, like really cool shit. Every day there was something really cool that we hit that was just like the highlight of the day, which was sweet.
I can't wait to see your photos and all that stuff, dude.
Yeah. I just got done editing them all, and I'm like overwhelmed about where to even go about posting these or what I want to do with them.
Yeah. That's cool, man.
Yeah.
I got a couple more questions here, and then we're going to kind of start to wrap it up a little bit. So before you had mentioned there's no gut hook, there's no, GPS, any of that stuff. What like map and or guidebook exists? Like, are there, first of all, is there even more than one? I feel like there's probably not,
So
right?
there's one map that the Cohos Trail Association puts out. It's super, super helpful. I use that, and then there's also a data book. There's two of them. There's one for northbound, and then there's one for southbound.
Are they put out by the same organization?
Yeah, it's put
Okay.
out by also the Co-host Trail Association, which is like a step by step how to navigate this trail, which is it's kind of confusing how to follow because the how they list out the mileage is very very weird. I didn't use it that much, but I had it as a backup.
Yeah.
It definitely helped in those situations where we got turned around. And yeah, so I just used the paper map for the most time. And then once we got into the presidentials and the Kilkenny, there is gut hooks for that.
Yeah, true.
So I just switched on gut hooks when we got on to the Kilkenny and doing the presidential traverse. But yeah, it was really cool just using maps and kind of doing it the old fashioned way, which was kind of like this lost beauty behind it because I really didn't want to be on my phone at all during this hike, like whether it be listening to music or just I didn't want to have to be constantly looking at it. So my phone was honestly like in my backpack the whole most of the time.
Yeah.
Um,
Nice.
yeah, so that's one thing I really liked about this trail. It really felt like you were in the middle of nowhere. I never had cell
I was
reception
gonna
when I
say, I
tried.
highly doubt there's even in like northern Vermont, like up in that area, even on like the roads and in the towns, there's like barely cell service. So
Yeah, and I have Sprint, which is just the word
we
the
talked
worst.
about this last time. I
Yeah.
remember now.
It's just the worst for signal anywhere, let alone in northern New Hampshire where
Yeah,
barely anybody lives in the first place.
nobody has a Sprint or T-Mobile up here, dude. Everyone's got like Verizon or AT&T pretty
Yeah,
much, and
yeah.
I've noticed that it's like or at least like a Vermont and New Hampshire thing. I feel like I don't know,
Yeah,
northern
definitely.
northeast thing.
Definitely.
Um, my last question before we get into the story time here is so this might be a little bit tough, but if you had to pick just overall, and let's exclude the presidential range too.
Yeah.
What would you say your favorite just like spot in general on the Cohos Trail was?
Probably Percy Peaks.
Percy Peaks. Okay.
There's North Percy and South Percy. We went up, so you don't necessarily go over them on the trail, but you hit a blue blaze where you can take a little short spur trail up to the summit of North Percy.
Okay.
And North Percy is an gorgeous, gorgeous mountain. Um, I think it's just a little bit below 4,000 feet. Um, yeah, and it gets super exposed, and you walk. It's almost like going up Bald Plate, I think it is in Maine, where there's
Oh
like that.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like a very, just like sloped rock face that you're
Oh, that's
walking up
sick.
once you get out of tree line. Yeah, it was awesome, and we got up there right around like just as the sun had rose, so it was still bright and really really nice lights.
I bet you got some awesome pictures of that, huh?
Yeah, that was a really cool spot. And then of course Dixville Notch is a beautiful area. There's like a mini flume there where there's like a huge waterfall and like really really good swimming areas. Um, especially a place called the Devil's Jacuzzi that we found.
Oh shit. That sounds pretty gnarly.
It was sweet. It was literally like a natural hot tub with all these like waterfalls going into it that had like natural shelving in it that you could like sit in, and the waterfalls will just like come down over your shoulders, and it was super nice
Devil's
to cool off.
Jacuzzi. I gotta Google
Yeah,
this shit.
yeah,
Dude, you're getting me stoked on this trail, man. Damn.
yeah. You're right there in Vermont, aren't you? You're not
I'm
far
really
from it.
close, yeah. I'm
Dude,
like,
I highly recommend hiking this trail.
dude, I might have to. I'm like torn. I'm torn. There's like so many like little trails in New England that I want to hit
Oh
like
yeah,
before I leave here, whenever that's gonna be within the next
yeah.
couple of years. So like shit, I don't know. There's, it's on my list for sure. It has been for a while. A buddy and I like briefly considered doing it a couple of years ago, but we ended up. I don't even remember what happened. I think we went and hiked or tried to hike the North Place Trail or something else. I can't quite remember, but yeah, dude, I'm definitely gonna get to it at some point. Let's do some stories or a story or whatever you got. What do you say?
Yeah, definitely.
So, do you have a story actually from the Cohos Trail, or are you gonna kind of dip into the archives of Aaron's
No,
hiking?
I'll tell a story from the Cohos Trail.
Cool.
So with this trail being heavily like not barely used, there's a lot of wildlife out there. Pretty much every day, all day, we saw a ton of moose prints, moose droppings throughout the trail. And on our first day, we were walking through this like kind of logged area. You walk through a few spots that have been like really heavily logged, and that are clear cut.
Mm-hmm.
And walking through this section, and literally, I want to say like 20 feet in front of us, this like younger male moose just runs right in front of us. And this was like really the first time I had ever seen a moose on trail. The only other time I'd seen a moose while hiking was when I finished my AT hike, and I was sitting on Main Street in Millinocket in the middle of the night, and there was a full-on moose that just ran down the middle of the road.
Classic Maine right there.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that was really cool. And then the next day we were walking down this logging road, or actually a four-wheel drive road. And we were just walking along, and I was looking down at my feet, and I looked up, and 20 yards in front of us was just a black bear chilling on the road eating some berries. Yeah, and yeah, so we saw quite a lot of wildlife. When, like I was saying, we camped on the shoreline of Lake Francis, and that night the trail was like pretty much right behind us, and it was a huge snowmobile corridor. And animals use them as like highways basically through the woods. So we were hanging out looking at the lake. It was pretty late at night, and we heard this moose walking right behind us, like 10 feet behind us. You could just feel it. The ground was like shaking, and then like,
was it sketchy, or was it just like so cool that like you didn't care?
It was pretty cool. Like in between where the shoreline was and the trail, there was a good amount of trees that were like kind of blocking us off.
Okay,
So it really couldn't get to us. But like 20 feet down the shoreline, you could hear it go into the water, and it was like hanging out in the pond for a little bit. So that was pretty cool.
Dude, I've heard the same thing from other people that have hiked this trail. Like, they say there's a ton of wildlife. Sounds like pretty much everybody sees a moose at some point on this trail. So that is super badass.
It was just it was really cool just not seeing anybody on like a longer distance hiking trail. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna kind of wrap it up there. Like, dude, thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah,
like
you're so
twice,
welcome.
First of all, like that's freaking awesome. I'm so glad I got to learn a little bit more about this trail. The problem with doing these episodes where I like learn about new trails is every time at the end I'm always like, oh, I have to go do this trail, and then I go do a bunch of research, and then by the time I like actually get around to like trying to make plans, I've like started to research another trail. Like I just can't make my mind up. Like I'm actually like so thankful that I've been able to learn about all these trails from this podcast. So
Yeah,
that
would be sweet, dude.
That sounds so awesome, dude. I'm definitely going to do this trail. Like I said, it's been on my radar for a number of years, but I just never really like dove that much into the research and all that stuff. So this was awesome to hear for sure.
Yeah, and I would almost do this trail again. I would like to do that full loop, including the long trail and Cohos trail connected with the AT, you know, back down to the long trail. That would be something that would be super sweet.
Yeah, dude. I got to learn more about that as well. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool, man. Where can people go to follow you and check out some of these awesome photos that you're going to be putting out there pretty soon from your hike?
Yeah. So you can follow me on Instagram. It's at ibuprofen. It's IBEY like my last name, and then PROFIN. You can follow me there. That's where I do a lot of my activity on social media. That, and then you can follow me on Facebook. It's just my name, Aaron Ibey. Yeah, that's where you can follow me.
Cool, man. I'll have a link to that stuff in the show notes as always. And I think that's gonna kind of wrap it up here. Aaron, thank you again so much. And to everybody listening, thanks for tuning in. Have a good one.
Yeah, thank you, man.